This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, happy Fantopia Friday, my friends. I am Erica Lukes, and always I look forward to Friday evenings so I can get into chat and see all of my friends. I want to give a shout out to Bruce, Dave, Douglas, who is new. This is awesome. Libertas, Northern UFOs, Susan, Tim, Yannick. Thank you all for tuning in. And I know that there are some of you who are not in chat, but your support means the world to me. And you are the reason that I do this every week. I hope to get you good information and to hopefully get the word out that this is a subject that deserves to be studied, that there are so many things that are not tangible that deserve funding, that we need to study this. And we also need to shine a light on perhaps what the government is doing with some of their research. But we'll see what happens with that. My guest this evening is someone who I have wanted on my show for years, and his work to me is incredibly important because of what he did in UCLA. And one of my favorite movies, even though we'll talk to him about that, it wasn't exactly accurate, was The Entity with Barbara Hershey. That was a great movie, and that was a case that he investigated. I have a book sitting here that, again, is one of my go-tos. It's called Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, Explorations of the Unknown by Dr. Barry Taff. He holds a doctorate in psychophysiology with a minor in biomedical engineering and is a world-renowned parapsychologist who worked out of UCLA's former parapsychology lab from 1969 through 1978 as a research associate. During his 4-decade career, Dr. Taff has investigated more than 4,500 cases of ghosts, hauntings, poltergeists, and conducted extensive studies in telepathy and precognition, eventually developing the initial protocols and methodologies for what was later termed remote viewing. That's interesting. He was also himself investigated as a psychic subject. The results were published in the Behavioral Neuropsychiatry, and his cases, what happened to him as a child and through his whole life has been fascinating. We'll talk to him about that. His bio is incredible, and I want to just go down and tell you that he has appeared on numerous TV and radio programs. He's been on Coast to Coast, CBS News, The Joan Rivers Show. I haven't heard that name in a long time. But The Haunting in Connecticut, he's been on Ghost Adventures, so many different things. He is incredible. And in 2010, he wrote the book that I have here. I highly recommend that you get it. And Dr. Taff, I am really honored and excited to have you here tonight.
Oh, thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here, finally.
I know, finally. And when we talked the first time, what was it, like 4 years ago?
Right, approximately. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so because, we get in the UFO world, we get so locked into just studying UFOs that we don't really understand the importance of studying parapsychology and how both of those things can interlap. Will you tell us, first of all, give us your background so my listeners know all about you?
Well, if I took the whole background, the whole show would be about my background as opposed to the research.
All right.
The work I did at UCLA, also I want to say this year is the 50th year I've been doing the research. So it's now 5.5 centuries.
Wow.
Rather than make me look older than I am, which is the point here. At UCLA, I did a lot of different work there, different research, some in the lab, some in the field. And what I did in the lab, which was more in terms of scholastic stuff, we ended up developing I ended up developing a number of patented medical devices, which are very unique. I don't want to go into detail, but that's in the real world. These are electronic devices that diagnose people, not in any paranormal way, just using technology. But in the lab, in the parapsychology lab directly, we did two types of work. One was we had what's called a psi training group, and that ran from 1969 all the way through actually 1980, and then we left and did work in independent facilities like at Westwood, and then people's homes. And we discovered that ESP, remote viewing for lack of a better name, is not what we think it is. It's far more complex, and it's sort of like, let's say you're watching a live broadcast on TV from New York, but you're in Los Angeles. You don't think of it as being 3 hours in the future. No, it's in real time. And what we've learned that our understanding of space and time is wrong in a major sense when it comes to the paranormal, that very likely the information that makes up the past still exists in a form we can't yet understand. The information that makes up the future very likely already exists, not the events, but the information related to those events. And what we discovered in the psi training groups was we could take normal, healthy people who weren't in therapy or they weren't in analysis, who weren't using drugs or they weren't alcoholics, just normal, stable people, and a small percentage of them could, in fact, be trained to become psychic. And it's a form of positive feedback and reinforcement where you begin to learn what it feels like to have an accurate psychic experience versus having fantasy or delusional thinking, or you're just drifting off in some other mode. The different types of phenomena we looked at in that program was telepathy, which is mind-to-mind communication, or clairvoyance, which is mind to perceiving an event at a distance, more like clairvoyance, but also could be looked at as remote viewing. And then precognition, which is the ability to see things in the future. And on my website, I have an article called about psi training, learned psi, becoming psychic, something like that. I forgot the exact title since I've written it. But it goes into depth of what we learned, and our whole belief, our whole understanding of this changed in a way that's hard for people to grasp, even hard for us to grasp, because there were so many blatantly intense instances of accurate information perception at a distance through space and time that it left everyone a little nervous. And some of our regulars got so upset with the data we were getting, they dropped out of the program because the emotions related to it were far too intense. So that we doing that in the lab, and it worked week after week after week after week. We were visited early on by, we didn't know this initially, people from Central Intelligence, the Office of Naval Intelligence, the NSA, DARPA. We didn't know who they were. These were just wearing normal clothes. And they eventually told us who they were after we demonstrated what we could do. And they said, could we do this on a regular basis? I said, yeah, it's not that hard if you have gifted people. And we discovered that only a small percentage of people could become incredible psychics, which means you have an inherent potential. It's sort of like we all have muscles. We can all work out and become stronger, and we could perhaps perform in a form of sports. I used to race cars professionally, road racing. And you have to learn how to shift and clutch and deal with the G-forces, lateral and forward and back G-forces. So it's a learning thing. You got to have good depth perception. You got to have good hand-eye-foot coordination. If you don't have that, you're going to either die or you're going to destroy your car. In this respect, it's the same thing with the ESP. Only a small percentage of the people became stellar, became stars. But those that did had problems in coping with the events, because you can control it in terms of your access a little bit, but you can't stop it from happening. There's no lead shield to put up to stop you perceiving a traumatic event that has not yet occurred. So anyway, that was our lab research. It was fascinating. And the woman who ran the lab was Dr. Thelma Moss, and she was doing her thing, and there were other people that did different things, and I did my thing, and But the real attention we got wasn't from the site training. The real attention we got was from field work, investigating cases of hauntings and poltergeists and things like that. And the chance of you running into phenomena while you're out there, real phenomena, is the chance of winning the lottery. I mean, thousands of cases, only a small number of them did we experience things in that we couldn't explain in any way whatsoever. And the cases that were active were extremely active. On my website, I talk about these called Hollymont, as good as it gets. Hollymont haunting, as good as it gets. Of course, the entity case, 1974. There was a whole bunch of cases we have on that I discuss in my book and on my website. And in the end, we now know things that we never thought we'd learn. Everything we thought we'd learn, we didn't. Things we never expected to learn, we did. And, you know, we know we understand some of the mechanics of this now that we didn't know before, but there's still many questions left unanswered because there's no money to do any more research.
And isn't that interesting? And I that is unfortunate. And, you know, now we see Tom DeLonge and all of the To the Stars Academy kind of pushing this out to the private sector. I mean, that'll be interesting to see where that shakes out in the future. But I have to go back to you being visited by naval intelligence, the CIA. Did your work interlap with anything that they were doing at Princeton?
You're talking about, wait, is it Princeton or SRI?
SRI.
They visited us well before the SRI program was going. And the reason they didn't fund us is because UCLA and the Neuropsychiatric Institute, which is the medical center, would not allow this to be formalized. It would be political suicide then as it would be now. So to be safe, they said, we want nothing to do with being funded by the government. They already had enough problems on their hands and with endowments and whatever, had negative publicity. So they couldn't work with it. We demonstrated what we could do over and over and over, and it kind of blew them away. But UCLA said, no, we won't tolerate this. So they went and dealt with up north, and that's history. And the irony was that some of the people, I won't give names, they've passed away by now, who evaluated the remote viewing program in SRI, which was quite successful in a number of respects, well beyond chance. One of the debunkers who tried to evaluate it redid the statistics for the intelligence community to make it look like the results that were quite spectacular were just an error in judgment, that nothing really happened. We misinterpreted, we misunderstood what was going on. No ESP, no precognition, no remote viewing, no clairvoyance. It's all a figment of our imagination. And they want to make sure that any potential future enemies can't use what we're doing against us.
Right.
So they put out disinformation, and disinformation is a big part of ufology as well as the paranormal. There's lots of crap out there, or bad information that is overlooked, or they say things and do things to misguide people so they don't pay attention to what's really going on. They want you to look, instead of looking forward, look to the side, so looking back. Behind you, look up. And I remember when that book by Annie Jacobson came out. I forgot the title of it. And
Phenomenon.
It's a terrible book because it's filled with, first of all, she did a really good job of repeating what history has taught us. I mean, all the stuff she talked about, the technological development that went on in aerospace is well documented, and there's no surprise. Anyone who's read this stuff knew, okay, great. And then the great secret was that the Roswell incident was actually surgically modified children from Russia to crash and make us think there's an alien invasion, so we get all screwed up. I mean, people have to understand how disinformation works. One way, like with Annie Jacobson's words, was that at the core, there's this incredible secret that's a lie, but it's surrounded by all this historical events that it's quite accurate. Oh, well, everything else is true, so I guess what's at the core is true. Or the opposite will be done, that at the core there's something quite real, but it's surrounded by a lot of false information. So again, the truth is destroyed. And this occurs in politics, it occurs in ufology, it occurred in the paranormal. And there was a famous individual who I can't mention his name. He wanted us to send him stuff from our side training groups, and we did work with missing person cases for the different police departments and sheriff department and throughout the country. This is decades ago, and so we were doing a study for the I think it was the LAPD, and long before it was completed, I get a call from Omni Magazine. And they said, we'd like to talk to you about the study. I said, what study? He mentioned what we're doing. And I went, wait a minute. What do you mean you want to talk about the results? Well, so-and-so from LAPD, Behavioral Sciences, said that it's done and it proved to be a failure. I go, that's odd because I haven't turned in all the data yet. How could they draw a conclusion that it's failed if he hasn't seen the data? This is BS. So I warned him that if he publishes stuff on this, I would have to take legal measures, and they never published. But, we're trying to do the right thing in the right way, and the whole thing was an attempt to jerk us to the side and make people think it's a failure. And there's also a group contacted me about 3.5 years ago, and they were supposedly setting up a parapsychology department at UC Santa Barbara. Okay. So they were thinking of hiring me to be the head of it, which would be great. And, I'd have to move out of L.A., which is not too bad. Santa Barbara's a great place to live. And then about a week or 10 days go by after. And he said, oh, look, we got a problem. I saw you've written stuff on UFOs and this and aliens, and we can't. It's too dangerous because there's a big aerospace company involved in funding. And I said to the man on the phone, I said, got a problem here. Did you read the title of my book? What book? You didn't do your due diligence to find out what I've been writing for the last 40-some years? No. I said, you want to look? And I looked up what they want to do, and it was more disinformation. Instead of being a study on precognition, it would have been an attempt to disinform the public as the stuff is not real, it's our imagination. And I said, oh, forget it. But the whole thing, we can't hire you because you've written about UFOs and exact propulsion technology. We can't. It's too big of a risk. Okay, fine. That's that. So, never a dull moment.
No, it is never a dull moment. And I know that just in our two conversations, you've shared your life has been absolutely fascinating. And I have to go back to, when you were doing this and developing all of this research, give us more information on that. How integral was Dr. Thelma Moss in all of this, or was she interested in other areas?
Well, Thelma was first, early on, she was going out in cases with us, investigating cases in the field. But then she got caught up with what's called Kirlian photography. And
right.
If you could look it up, it was visually interesting, but it had no more relevance to the paranormal than your respiration does. It was a lot of garbage put forth by the Soviet Union, and she met a friend. A guy came in the lab with a Kirlian device, and she was really caught up, obsessed with it. And I warned her, look, I've got a Tesla coil I'll bring in with a timer and an electrode. I go, there's nothing unique about this. So she got caught up in that, and she kind of lost her way in terms of doing other work. So she stopped going out on cases with us, and she never came to our site development groups because she was too busy with the Kirlian photography. And when she was up to be promoted from assistant to associate professor, they promoted her from assistant to associate, but then they made her I forgot the term they used, an adjunct. So it was one step forward, two steps back. So at that point, she left. 1980, I think it was. And that was, in my website, in my book, I talk about a dream I had about the lab's ending. It was very melodramatic, and thank God what I dreamt didn't happen, and we would have all died in that facility. But it was a distorted perception to primary process. When we're accessing information about the future that's too painful for us to deal with, our subconscious mind will flavor it in a way that makes it tolerable, sort of noise to a signal. And I'll never forget this if I live to be 150. In the dream, the head of the Neuropsychiatric Institute comes to the lab. Now, we already knew who he was, Dr. Jolyon West. And we knew he didn't like what we were doing. But in the room, he comes in, and he tells us he's how much he hates our work and this and this and this. And suddenly, the building and the room violently shake like it's an earthquake. And we feel we're falling like in free fall. Oh, my God, we're going to die. And suddenly it stops. And we now find ourselves moving horizontally down the road and look out the window, and I go, what's that? It's a big placard of wood, and on the placard is an emaciated, rotted corpse of a dog, of a German Shepherd, and of a woman, a young lady. And we're like a stagecoach. I'm going, what's this? And I go, what's that? And the dream Dr. West turns, and he goes, oh, my God, that's my sister. I go, what? Well, yeah, she died of cancer, and she wasted away, and that's her German Shepherd. I go, what? Yeah, he was hit by a car and pretty much mangled. Okay, so the room stops moving. We get out, open the door, and instead of it being a hallway, but connecting to our room, to our lab, it was steps leading down to dark, moist earth. And we walked down it shrouded in fog like a cheap horror movie. We look back, and there's this corpse of this dog on the placard it turned into a 18th century funeral coach with the lamps at each corner. And, well, I said, what's going on? And the corpse lady turns to me, and she said, well, you're dead, and I brought you all here to bury you. And I jump out of bed. I'm shaking. I'm sweating. And I go, oh, this isn't good. This is not good. So I told Dr. Moss the next day of the dream. And he said, well, we'll either die in the room, in the lab, as you dropped about, but probably it's a primary process. It's noise getting into an upset signal, real information. It's upsetting for me. And not long thereafter, Dr. West came and told us he's shutting us down. This is in 1978. So,
and I have to. We're going to break, so we'll hang on that thought. I want to just say thank you. If you go to barrytaft.net, and you can read all of his wonderful articles, look at his research, and make sure you go there and get the best book known to man. In one of my opinions, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below. I'm Erica Lukes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Paranormal radio never sounded so good. Join the hosts of the American Ghost Hunter Show each week as they shoot from the hip without holding back.
They're kind of unpredictable, not like the rest of us.
Live every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Come hear some of the hottest authors, investigators, as well as TV and radio personalities from around the world on the American Ghost Hunter Show.
Our survival depends upon it.
Hauntings, UFOs, cryptos. If it's branded paranormal, we'll be talking about it. The American Ghost Hunter Show. Live Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The only question you have to ask yourself, are you ready for it?
Yeah! All right!
It's great. I think it's great. It's great.
The all-new KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Great. Please make a note of it. It's great.
The Fenton Files, where it's all connected.
You see, whoever controls technology controls the world.
Come explore a universe full of possibilities. Every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern.
The Fenton Files.
Go where no other show has gone before.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there.
Whether it be UFOs, aliens, conspiracies, or even consciousness, your host, Lorian Fenton, has a file for that. The Fenton Files. Your journey to the truth is but a file away. Live, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The Fenton Files.
Incredibly intense.
Where truth is just waiting to be discovered.
Monday nights are about to become hauntingly good, as Reverend Sean Whittington possesses the airwaves with Vegas Supernatural. Tune in every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for Vegas Supernatural, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. There's a war raging between good and evil. The question is, which side are you fighting on? Tune in Monday nights as Reverend Sean Whittington sets the new standard for paranormal radio with some of the most influential personalities in the world today. Vegas Supernatural, hosted by Reverend Sean Whittington, every Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The one show even the devil doesn't want you to hear.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back and happy Fantopia Friday. I'm here on the best digital broadcasting network on the planet. As always, I have to give a big shout out to my producer, Tina Marie, and station owner. She is exceptional, and I'm really grateful to be on such a respectable, grounded network that operates with just above board. It's incredible. I want to thank all of you for getting into chat and for sharing information about the show. Northern UFOs, you rock. Thank you for getting my interviews onto YouTube. You are amazing, and I really rely on you and getting the word out. So thank you very much for all you do. My guest this evening is Dr. Barry Taff, who I have been looking into and following for quite some time. He has consulted for government, business, and law enforcement, including the CIA, Office of Naval Intelligence, the NSA, the Defense Language Institute, Defense Intelligence Agency, and many more things. You can go to barrytaff.net to check that out. His book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, is a must-read, so get that. When we left off, Dr. Taff, you were talking about this dream, so let's continue.
Right. So, okay, the room has stopped moving. We open the door, and instead of being in the hallway, it's stairs, going down to dark, moist earth, covered in fog. We turn back to discover the room is turned into a 19th century funeral coach with gas lanterns or with lanterns at each end, and there is the corpse-like woman and the mangled corpse of a German Shepherd. And I walk down the steps, and I go, where are we? And the corpse woman turns to me and goes, I brought you to here to bury you because you're all dead. I go, oh my God! So I woke up. So I thought, well, told Dr. Moss about it. And she said, well, we're either going to die in the room or I've had a accurate perception, but my mind has distorted it to safeguard me from the emotional pain of the lab ending. That sounds better. Okay, so a few weeks later, Dr. Jolyon West comes into the lab and tells us he's shutting us down. I mean, it was no surprise. We knew our days were numbered. We just didn't know at what day our number would be up. So as he's walking out to the back of the corridor, I said, Dr. West, can I speak to you for a moment? Okay, but I'm real busy. I said, no, just a moment. You have a sister? Well, I did. What do you mean? Well, she died of cancer. She wasted away. I went, oh. I said, odd question. Did she have a dog? He goes, how did you know she had a dog? What type? German Shepherd. What happened to the dog? He was badly mangled in an auto accident. In the dream, he was the one who recognized the image of the corpse lady and the dog as being his sister. And why are you asking me about this stuff? I said, I'm just curious. He walked away, and that was it. And then the lab shut down. But see, the lab shutting down in a way gave us an impetus we didn't have because it motivated us, the fact that we must be doing something right if they want to get rid of us. One of the events that happened in our site training groups was so astounding that it bears repeating. We were tired of doing the real-time telepathic clairvoyant stuff. We could do it at ease, no big deal. Over and over again we did it. Let's try something different. Let's try our first precognitive effort. So it was our Wednesday night meeting in the lab, in the conference room. Pitch is a partially sensory-deprived environment. Couldn't see, couldn't hear anything. A person would be a target, and they would think about someone or something, and we would verbally expound on perceptions, which would be recorded. Okay, so this last Wednesday night, imagine, all of you, that it's 1 week forward. It's this date. It's the last session, which is at 9:30 at night. Describe with detail the target. Now, we don't... so we start talking about a tall, blue-eyed blonde lady, very exotic looking, a tan pants outfit, very professional looking, like a model. We see a big 3-story home against the hills. We see a baby grand piano, and then we see a tall man, well, about 6'3", 6'4", handsome, dressed all in black pants, black shirt, black boots, black gloves, black mask, black cape, black hat, and an imposing silver sword. And we thought, if we lost our minds? So, that was supposed to be for a week forward. So the next week, no one who had been at the prior group could invite anyone. It had to be a blind situation. So new people came in through third parties. We gave each of them a little packet, an opaque envelope with a piece of paper and a number on it. They couldn't see it, nor could we. And they came in, we sat down, and I said, sit down. There were 24 chairs. Anyone could choose whatever chair they wanted except mine. And I said, open your envelopes. Everyone opened them. No, excuse me. Back up. We rolled dice, 2 dice. Look at the number. Open your envelopes. Whatever number corresponds to the dice roll, let us know. And this woman goes, oh, that's me. Now, we forgot what we had said a week earlier. That's easy to do. And we gave her the tape to control, audio tape. And I said, when you hear a comment about yourself that's relevant, that's obviously you, stop it and comment. If the comment is not relevant to you and your life, don't stop it. So we have no idea who this woman is. The tape's running. We describe her. Perfect physical description, even her clothes. We named the chair she'd be sitting in or going to sit in. And we were right. She sat in her own before she was picked as the target. Hair, everything was the same. Grew up in a 3-story house in the Hollywood Hills, baby grand piano. And then we come to but that all could be coincidence. That could be all coincidence. But then we come to the tall man dressed in black with a sword. And she stopped. She goes, do you know who I am? And we go, what do you mean? I'm Tony Williams. We go, and? but don't you know who I am? I said, yeah, you told us, but why should we know that name? She goes, my father is Guy Williams. He played Zorro for Disney. What? Late 50s. It was only on for a couple seasons. Really a good show. And she goes, wait, I don't get this. When did you make this tape? A week ago. She goes, I didn't know I was coming here till a couple of hours ago. How did you... Exactly. How could you see a future event if it's not there? What are you seeing? Coincidence? Probability? No, I don't. No, I'm sorry. I don't buy that. So that was a little unnerving to some of our regulars of the group. So let's try it again a couple weeks later. And same pitch black environment, sensory deprivation. And, we'll just name the 1 week later. All we keep seeing is fire, 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 fire. What? We're losing our minds. Okay. The next day, that was the Thursday morning, I'm in the lab, and fire engines are coming to UCLA, to the building, to the Neuropsychiatric Institute, which is now called the Semel Institute. And fire. We go down, and that conference room we were in had caught fire. The drapes, the curtains, the socket behind it had shorted out, sputtered, and it caught the drapes on fire. So no wonder why we picked up the fire. It was imminent. But this poses the question, how could you see something that doesn't yet exist? You can't. If you're guessing, it's going to be random garbage. You're not going to get reliability in it. Another example, this is my own personal life. 38 years ago, I met a girl in college, undergraduate, and her name was Sharon. She looked like the actress Jane Krakowski, almost a double of her. So we were dating, and everything was good, and then came the dreams. And in the dreams I had, they were the same dream. I'm in the back seat of a car. I see her in the passenger seat, but I can't see that I'm driving. I just see someone's driving with dark hair. Couldn't see the dashboard of the car. We turned down the cul-de-sac to get to her home in the San Fernando Valley, and a large car flies out, hits us head-on, violent collision, and she's bounced around like a pebble, even though she had her seatbelt on, and fire and glass. It was really bad. And the dream kept recurring and recurring. Go, this is not good. So I finally talked to Sharon, thinking she'd go, oh, this is great, I'll avoid it. But no, it wasn't her response. And I really didn't blame her, because she knew me, but not that well. And so she thought this is the way to weasel out of the relationship. I mean, I lived in West Los Angeles on the edge of Beverly Hills. She lived in Northridge. But in those days, gas was 28 cents a gallon. So who cares, right? I had a really nice car. I enjoyed driving to see her. It was great. Excuse me, just drink some water. So she thought I was making this up. I go, look, you know how much I like to drive. She goes, I don't know. I said, well, I said, okay, we're not seeing each other. Good, I've changed the future. Wrong. Sometime later, she started dating someone else. I don't know who, didn't matter. And coming home from the date, her boyfriend's driving her home. The accident I saw did occur. She was badly injured, and her boyfriend died. So I didn't change anything. My ego put me in the driver's seat. Well, it must be me, because she's in the passenger seat. But that wasn't correct. So I misinterpreted the future because of my ego. And this is what goes on all the time. Our mind tends to fill in the blanks. Our mind doesn't like noise or chaos. Our mind doesn't like things that are negative. We try to make things feel comfortable. When I was, 19, when JFK was inaugurated, the day of the inauguration, I remember I told my parents, I said, he's going to be killed right around Thanksgiving of '63. And they went, what? I don't know specifics, but it's going to happen. How do you know? I said, because I'm seeing it in my head. They okay, don't bother us. They kind of ignored me. And 3 years later, November 22nd, we know what happened, and they freaked out really bad. My parents, they didn't speak to me for weeks. They just like to stay away from me. So, it's, what do you do? Again, I've lost a lot of friends because of my work.
I think we all have, absolutely. You can't go into this and not realize that you're going to lose loved ones.
Right.
This puts a huge strain on everything, every part of your life.
Right, and remember, it's sort of another one of my articles is called about being psychic. It's an article, one of the latter ones I wrote. What's it called? A different kind of psychic, being a medical intuitive. And this has gotten me in more trouble than I can say. It would take up four or five shows. I remember, this is like in the 5th grade, you're 10 years old. In the courtyard during recess, this little girl named Christine, blonde girl, is walking towards me, and she's wearing like a sundress with a blue and with a paisley flower somewhere. I went up to her. I said, What's that thing under your dress, that tube going into your body? She had a colostomy. I didn't know what a colostomy was. I'm 10 years old. And she screamed, ran out the teacher. They took her to the principal's office. What did you look under her dress to sneak in the girls' bathroom? I said, no, I just looked at her, and it came on. He goes, what came on? Like X-ray vision. He goes, huh? He goes, look, we can have you arrested for this and thrown into school. So he calls my mom, and she says, he can do this. And the principal went, what? He can do this. Look, you people nuts? So he hangs up the phone, and he turns at me, and I looked at him. I said, you got that scar that never healed properly from your appendectomy. And he turned white as a sheet. And he said, if I ever hear this occurring again here, I'll throw you out. And, of course, it did occur, but I didn't talk about it. So, there was an incident 1999, this girl I used to date decades earlier showed up. We were talking outside. She sounded a little weird. And I said to her, look, a couple things. I think you need psychiatric intervention. You sound suicidal. But I said, before that, what's the jellyfish all over your chest? And she went, what? She was wearing a halter top. It was very warm. It looks like a jellyfish over you. I got closer to her. Oh, no, Linda, it's not on you, it's in you. You better go see an oncologist and have some mammograms, right? Because your breasts are riddled with tumors. She goes, what? I said, check it out. So, a couple of weeks later, she called back. She had to have a radical mastectomy. Both breasts removed. And, and then she did attempt suicide, but not because of that. But she failed, fortunately. It's I don't know. It's when Man of Steel came out in 2013, the scene of the young Clark Kent in school when his X-ray vision develops.
Mm-hmm. Right, yep.
Boy, did I identify with that. It was, wow. Because I didn't run into a closet and start crying and use heat vision to heat up the latch and the doorknob, but I said, it's exactly what I went through.
Right.
And you learn if you keep talking about this, people are going to avoid you, and they do. They're afraid of what get in front of you. What are you going to say? And I go,
Well, and I think that's how a lot of people that have UFO experiences or, hauntings. It's a very difficult thing for people to talk about, and it affects and can ruin people's lives. And that's so unfortunate.
Yeah. And the problem is if they're like with abductions and if they don't get the proper type of support, psychological, support, they will come apart because who do you talk to? And will people believe you? Will be ostracized. People will ridicule you. They'll think you're mentally ill. And yes, in my book, there's in my new book, I go into a separate case that I dealt with 41 years ago, the only girl I could have married, and she was abducted. All my dreams told me that on July 22nd, the relationship would end, but I didn't know why. And that's when she was abducted, and she just had a complete breakdown after that. She just complete, literal psychosis. And it's amazing. She was very normal, and suddenly, wham, she wouldn't seek any type of psychological help, psychiatric intervention, and it's sort of like, when women are raped, you talk about it, and they're embarrassed and humiliated like it's their fault, and it isn't their fault. It's the same thing, but it's worse because it doesn't. Most people could live out 100 lifetimes without ever hearing of an abduction. So it's a terrible thing, and there's no easy way out.
No, there isn't. And I've got to ask you, because we've got incredible questions in chat, and I want to ask a couple before we go to break. But Dr. Bruce Cornett wants to know, I mean, he asks, is the intelligence community, why do they not want your research to reach public awareness?
I don't think it's my research in particular. I just think that no one really knows precisely how all this stuff works. If they did, the world would be a lot different. For everything we know, for everything we think we know, there's probably dozens or hundreds of things we don't. But remember, our society is based on social functionality. The last thing we need is events that trigger chaos. Like every April 15th, which we're coming up on soon, if people start to freak out and they don't trust the government, and they realize the government is not God and they can't protect us against some things, and they lie to us for their own benefit, maybe people wouldn't pay their taxes, and that would be very dangerous. But it's that simple. You want to empower people. You want to keep them where they are and keep them ignorant, sheeple. That term people use. It's not my work per se. The government's gone to great lengths to discredit the paranormal because they don't want our enemies using it against them. And the problem is, in my book and my website, I talk about some of the insane things that have happened in the past regarding the government's futile and feeble efforts to shield this ability from working, and no one knows how to do it.
And so, I mean, have you personally been harassed by anybody in the government or told to stop what you're doing?
The only thing close to that would be I was interviewed by the UCLA Daily Bruin back in the mid-'70s. I talked a little bit about our site training groups, and I mentioned a few of the intelligence agencies who had popped in on us. And it got published, and the writer had made some errors in what he said, but it was enough I got some rather nasty calls from these groups saying, look, print a retraction or we make life impossible. But there was enough errors I could print they did print a retraction. And they said, okay, well, what kind of things can you do? They said, well, you won't be able to get a job, you never be able to have a bank account or get a loan for a house or buy a car. What? Well, that never happened. They could have been lying. But there were enough errors in the article that I was able to write a retraction, which they published. Man, it's writing for newspapers. I've been in the LA Times several times, and one was June 2nd of 1976, I believe. And it was more tongue-in-cheek. It could have been a lot worse. Could have been a hell of a lot better. And that they made us look like a bunch of clowns. This is for the case on Hollymont. And then, of course, all the debunkers start chiming in. And they said, we're making this stuff up. You have hundreds of witnesses to these things. Everyone's lying in concert. What's the point? If they're lying, they're making themselves look like fools in the public's eye. The bottom line is that domestic tranquility is the operative term. If that fails, everything we know of collapses. So they don't want to do anything that disenfranchises us from who and what we are. So to keep us stupid, we keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's interesting, all the shootings we've had recently in schools, the terrible things. I mean, it's not surprising to me this happening. It's very discouraging. I want to know why it's happening more so now than ever. Why does this seem to be a recurring pattern? And it has to go to the social structure of our culture. And it's more than just violent movies, violent TV, violent music, violent music videos. There's something else happening, and I don't know what it is, but there is a way that would prevent this from happening, that would not prevent people who want to buy guns from getting them, but would prevent the wrong people from buying them. And I'm shocked that no one's come forward with this. Back in the 80s, I gave a lecture for the ACLU in Los Angeles, and I talked about some technology. I was developing a new type of lie detector, and they were upset with me because it would take the rights of criminals away. I went, what? No, it would protect the rights of both the plaintiffs and defendants in all matters. So guilty people would never be let go, and innocent people would never be falsely prosecuted and blamed for things they didn't do. They didn't like that. Excuse me. I went like, what? Is it the social justice where everyone is, innocent and not proven guilty? It's amazing. And I feel like I'm trapped in the 16th century occasionally.
And I do as well. And we were going to take a break, and I have so many questions in chat and so many questions that I want to ask you now as this conversation progresses. Please, everyone, go to barrytaff.net, read the articles, get Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, Explorations of the Unknown. I'm Erica Lukes. We will be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I want to thank all of you for tuning in from all over the world, sending me your messages. I am sorry if I don't reply as timely as I should. I swear I need to clone me, and I would get back to you, but thank you. Just please know that your support means the world to me. I want to tell you next week I have the privilege of having Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich here at the same time. So this is important. This is preserving history. I cannot wait to have both of them here. I love doing this. It's incredible. My guest tonight is Dr. Barry Taff, who is a parapsychologist, world-renowned. He's been on many different TV shows. You can go to barrytaff.net to read his essays and to also learn about his book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below. He was the lead investigator on the Entity case, which, of course, you probably should watch that movie this weekend. It's very interesting. We're going to talk about that more later in the evening. But I want to, on the break, we always have these great conversations, and one of the things that we we were talking about is the fact that there was a group or people that were trying to step in to put the kibosh on funding. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, see, it's not. The thing at UCLA, university exists on endowment grants, and if they don't get that in, they disappear. UCLA is not. It's It's University of California at Los Angeles. It's not USC where you pay extraordinary tuitions, or it's not Caltech or Stanford. But the political environment there, even back in the late '60s when I got in there, is not that open-minded. They're very closed-minded to new things, and they very carefully evaluate things that come into them for having potentially lethal effects on future endowments. And that's it. So if someone in the word would have gotten out that, hey, DARPA or ONI or CIA or whatever, NRO is funding a remote viewing program at UCLA, kiss their endowments goodbye. And if I was in their position, I would do the same thing, because they're not going to, and also they look like public fools. Every time I appeared on television when I worked at UCLA, I was on INLA twice, I was at Two in the Town, the LA Times, the Daily Bruin over and over again. They were horrified. They were freaking out because they don't want to be linked to this stuff, because their job is to keep everything calm and quiet to get more money in. And they don't want to look like crazy people, so they stop it from happening. An example, another example of how strange it is. Back in the late 70s, I worked on a case that was an executive from one of the TV networks. His name and network are irrelevant. Nice man. I met him and his wife, poltergeist activity around them. Okay. And he was talking about it to people at work, and they began to think he was crazy. Well, it evolved into an abduction case. Him and his wife were driving up north. It's in my book. And they thought they saw a meteorite crashing, and they followed it up into a canyon. They went up north. They found this thing on the ground, these little entities, and a beam of light, and they blacked out. They woke up an hour later driving their car on a highway north. And only over many months of time did some of the story come out. Anyway, it destroyed this man's career. He started talking a little bit about it at work, and they thought he was insane. And he lost his job. Had another job at another network, similar. They talked about it. They thought he was insane. He lost his job. I understand why this is being done. The idea, if someone comes into a work environment and they're talking about strange, frightening, odd things, it might create a hostile work environment wherein other people get so caught up with what one person's saying, they don't do their job, or they want to leave early, or they quit. And this is why this stuff has always been persona non grata. It's sort of like one of the things when I was at UCLA in graduate school, I had to go into psychiatric wards and evaluate people, listen to them talking, and ask them questions. And it was very depressing seeing the conditions that existed then, much of which still exist today, but at a smaller level. And you realize that there may not be a big of a line between people who are considered psychotic and people who claim that they've had extraordinary experiences that don't fit the world we live in. So it's hard for society at large, academia specifically, to deal with this. It's fun and games until it becomes personal. Then they want to get away from you because they think you're suffering from a psychotic break. And we've had people that started out normal, and they do have a psychotic break eventually, because this is a field people get into because they're looking for answers many times about different things. And when they can't get the answers from the paranormal, well, okay, then they'll go to God. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's an old saying from the original X-Files episode. I forgot the name of the episode. Mulder says to Scully, we can talk to God all day, and they call that prayer. But when God talks back, you're schizophrenic. Very accurate depiction of the way things have worked for many, many decades here. I have a gut feeling that if all this, the knowledge was brought to the forefront of society, it would really mess up our civilization. What if we learn, for example, that we're not who we think we are? What if we learn that we don't start at birth, we don't end at death? It's a continuum, and we just inhabit a body. We're containers where we animate it, and then when we pass away, we go back to where we came from. And I don't blame some of the academic environments from being so paranoid, because they don't exist without money. That's what it comes down to in the end. It's all about money.
But what about the government and the fact that that they would want to weaponize this?
Well, what else isn't? They weaponize everything else. One part of it is the countermeasures. The government went great looking for that. And if you don't know what you're dealing with, how do you stop it? I mean, we don't know. We talk about, my book talks about this. I'm writing another book, goes into more depth on it. The evidence suggests if I'm able to access your mind from where you are, from where I am, that time and space don't really get involved. You could be anywhere. If I wanted to access you, I could. You could do it to me. So there's no wave or particle we're familiar or field that we know of to explain this. So how can we see things at a distance without any way of doing it that we know of? There comes consciousness. And the only model of consciousness that fits this is a holonomic one. Real simple. You take an 8 by 10 picture of you. You cut it in half, quarters, eighths, whatever. Each piece gets smaller and smaller. Take a hologram, you cut it. Each piece of the hologram can still be shown to be whole, because the information that made up the hologram is equally distributed in the medium. Now, the smaller the aperture of the hologram, the less resolution it has, but each piece can recreate the whole. The same way all of our cells have the DNA to recreate us, which is what cloning would be based on. If this is true, this at a consciousness level, this means that, again, the past's information, yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, a decade ago, 100 years ago, whatever, still exists. Not the events, the information still exists. And it suggests that the future at some level, informationally, already exists. And, okay, so this ties us together. And now the clincher is, I won't mention a certain person's name because I don't want to get him in more trouble. He's an MD and a PhD, used to work at Caltech, and he spent a lot of time discovering, by accident, that our long-term memories may not reside in our own brains. What? That would mean that they're stored in a remote power field, like a zero-point power field, and the way we access them, the mechanism is indeed remote, meaning it's paranormal as we understand it. Short-term memory, they believe, is in our brain, but the long-term memory appears to be stored outside of ourselves. But this is the way we function every day, year after year, decade after decade, by accessing our long-term memories. Okay, well, if that's paranormal, then we're a paranormal being. Oh, that means there's more to this that we understand. Yep, that's correct. But, I mean, it's the powers that be don't want to empower us. They want to keep us at a very simplistic level to ensure domestic tranquility. If tomorrow, the United States and, let's say, the UK, not only declassified all the UFO documents, but it said, hey, we've had contact with these beings from different cultures, we've dealt with them, and we've had some technology, and we told them we wouldn't interfere with what they're doing here if they give us some toys to play with. How do you think that would make people feel? A lot of people like us might say, this is great, let's learn more. A lot of people who go to church, synagogue, mosque every weekend, whatever, they might freak out. Hey, wait a minute. One group of beings created us? What? Wait a minute. So that means we're not made in the image of God. We're made in the image of who? What? That's it. Domestic tranquility breaks down. Social infrastructure chaos. And then what? like I said, back in 1980, I was dating a girl named Paula. And the reason I'm mentioning this, I didn't know it at the time, but she was part of the DuPont family. And we were dating, and one weekend I get a visit from Defense Intelligence and Central Intelligence. They said, look, someone is checking you out with us. And I'm trying to, what? Who is it? They told me. I went, that's this girl's aunt. Well, that's part of the DuPont family. I go, it is? Apparently, Paula told her aunt about who I am, what I've been doing at UCLA, and she didn't trust me, thought I was crazy, and they wouldn't tell her anything, the intelligence groups. But they said, why is this woman doing it? I go, because they're crazy people, and they have nothing else to do. So Paula's aunt called me again. I found out she was having me followed. Hey, I'm not doing anything illegal. Follow me all you want. You'll be bored to death. But I did tell her, I said, hey, you're a fat middle-aged woman. There is myocardial infarction. And boom. What are you telling? I said, well, there is remote influence. She said, what? Mind over matter, psychokinesis, remotely. Huh? Are you threatening me? He said, I'm not going to do a thing. Just telling you that. And she stopped bothering me after that. Because I didn't threaten her. I just brought up some potentials. So, you throw the crazy at the crazy people. It got rid of her.
So define what remote influence is.
Okay. We know what remote viewing is. The perceptions of events at a distance. Okay, books have been published on that, articles, remote influence, the ability to change things at a distance, influence electronic technology, mechanical technology, biological interfaces such as human beings or animals, and there has been some success in it, but nowhere near that of remote viewing. It's a lot easier to see something than it is to break something down. There was a man who was sort of a mentor of mine. He passed away, Dr. Robert Becker. He was Robert O. Becker. He studied the way amphibians regenerate themselves, and he applied the knowledge to mammals, which don't regenerate limbs or organs, and he was able to regenerate limbs, bones, dendrites, axons, neurons, flesh, muscle. Wow. So you think this would be great. People who had accidents or they were in wars could have their limbs regenerated. No one did anything about it. Okay. He also found a way to make your bone heal faster if you've broken a bone. Instead of wearing a cast for 6 to 9 weeks, you put this cast on. It's got a magnetic induction coil. Our bones are piezoelectric. It stimulates the knitting of your broken bone, and it does so in 10 days rather than 6 to 9 weeks. So was this ever followed up? No. But, yeah, I was running around UCLA Medical Center just decades ago, telling people about this technology, and they said, don't bother us. Aren't you interested in this? They go, no. Okay, was trying to sell a car to a caveman here. Stop talking about it. It's cognitive dissonance. It's not relevant to their needs or wants in that moment. But God forbid a friend, family member should lose a limb. Then they'd be interested in it. We live in a difficult world where people only show interest in something if it's related to themselves. Several years ago, I have a business plan written on my medical devices. My name is no longer in the plan for good reason, and I'll tell you why. We got it to a big a multinational technology group. Then one of their heads of development read it, and he went nuts. This is incredible. He wrote a note to the head of the company, start development of 3 of the 6 patents. Okay, great. Months go by, no response. Months go by, no response. Finally, I heard back, and the guy said, we read the patents. They're worthless. They're crap. They're unreadable. And there's no evidence of any clinical research whatsoever. I thought, what? I said, sir, did you read the plan? Oh, yeah, it was absolute trash. I go, sir, stop lying to me. Tell me the truth. What you're saying doesn't make any sense. Tell me the truth. Long pause. And he started talking. Okay, you want the truth? I'll give it to you. He sounded a little bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger, his voice. with that type of an accent. And he said, okay, I looked you up, and the minute I saw who you are and what you've done, I threw the plan away because you're crazy. Anyone interested in the paranormal and ufology is insane. I don't care what you're writing about. Boom, gone. So now my name is no longer the business plan, even though my name's on the patents. Well, so was one of my colleagues. So it's like the stuff can really screw up your life.
Yes, it can. Absolutely. And so we have to, I want to talk when we get back, this is our last break we're getting ready to take, but about all of your experiments, all of your casework, your research, especially with the paranormal. And if you could give us, I mean, I know that we're not scientists, but how would we know what equipment to use and what the dangers are and all of these things? What can we do just as people who want to learn more?
Okay.
I know that's kind of a loaded question there.
Yeah. Where do you
because
begin? Where are you at?
So, I mean, but it for me, because I mean, and I know that a lot of my viewers or listeners, we all got into this because of our own personal experiences. And back, when I was younger, I mean, I used to, have my EMF detector. I lived in a haunted house. All of these things were happening around me. And so, of course, you turn to what you're going to see in the media, or you get a Ouija board out, or you turn to some of these things to try to find answers. And I know after talking to you that that's not the way to go, and that that kind of puts you down a really dangerous path.
Yep, I agree with that.
So give us, before we go to break, I mean, tell us why that is a dangerous path to go down.
Well, start with the Ouija board. Okay, you put your hand on the planchette, it moves around. Do you let a living person take your hand and move it around? No. So why let a dead person do it? That's the simplistic way of looking at it. But we found that people who get hooked on Ouija boards, it's too slow eventually. They might get into automatic writing, then automatism, then they start speaking in tongues, and then they're in a psychiatric institution. And I'm not joking about this. I've seen more people come unglued from being in this area. Part of our subjects at UCLA we work with, they couldn't handle the stress of accessing telepathic, clairvoyant, precognitive information. It's like giving someone vision who's been blind all their life. You go, oh my God. It's like, and how do you stop it? And once the stuff is kindled and triggered within an individual, you always want to know, we want completion. We want to fill in the missing parts. We want to know what's going on. Well, sometimes it's not as good as it sounds. So it's better sometimes to know what it is as opposed to how.
Oh, and it's so hard, because when you think of something paranormal, or you think of a UFO experience, I mean, it is so rare, and it's such a random occurrence that these things will happen, that you have no respect for the subject. And so you go out there and you try to goad it like they do in Ghost Adventures.
Right.
And the more I've learned about this, the older I've become, the more experiences I've had, the more I see that this is dangerous. There are health effects.
There are, for example, we saw some very interesting continuity aspects to this, that a lot of these environments have very strong electromagnetic fields and very strong or geomagnetic fields. And if someone's hypersensitive to these environments because they're either seizure prone or epileptic, being in that environment under the right conditions will trigger phenomena. And yet other people could be there and nothing happens at all. It's sort of like if you want to watch that DVD that's in your hand, you got to put it in a DVD player, got to be able to turn it on, you got to have a TV, you got to turn the TV on. If any element of that or that ensemble's missing, you get no image on your television. So it's a confluence. There's a whole bunch of things that are involved here. And like I said, the fact that the majority of people who have these experiences, the poltergeist type things, tend to be either seizure prone or epileptic, have serious stress related dysfunction. And what a coincidence that they keep telling us the same stories over, and we can measure this in them now. You can't measure a biomagnetic field. It's really weak. You need a superconducting sensor, which are not, and they're not carryable in your hand yet. But the instruments we have, low-frequency magnetometers or low-frequency electromagnetic low-frequency spectrum analyzers will measure strong electric fields from people and weak magnetic fields from people that are poltergeist agents. It's like a sore thumb. Their body is emitting enormous amounts of power that somehow get focused into tearing the environment apart.
Oh, and I hear that music, and so we're going to take a break. I am here with Dr. Barry Taft. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific.
For Hyperspace.
The one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven.
Solaris Blue Raven.
Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
30 seconds and counting.
Broadcasting to you from another planet. Beaming you a world of entertainment.
This is the world-famous KCOR. Now listen live online at KCORradio.com.
I like everything about this station.
When do I listen? Like 24 hours a day.
It's my favorite station. I just love the music. It keeps me going at work.
Saturday nights live on this station. It's a ride into the parabnormal. From aliens to UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and anything else you just can't explain. I'm Jeremy Scott. I'll entertain you with 3 hours of conversation every Saturday night, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal. Join me for Into the Parabnormal. Live Saturday nights from 6 to 9 on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix.
The Paradigm Matrix.
Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now in this very room.
The 1 hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole.
The Paradigm Matrix
explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or Head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back for the final segment. This always breaks my heart, I have to say. I want to thank all of you for getting into chat, for sharing information about the show. Definitely a big shout out to Northern UFOs. Thank you for all that you do. I am here every week for you, and I love having this community where we're respectable and professional, and we ask incredibly intelligent questions, so thank you. I am here tonight with Dr. Barry Taff, who is a parapsychologist, and you can go to barrytaff.net to learn more about him. Make sure you get Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, Explorations of the Unknown. That is a great book. I've had it on my shelf, and I refer to it a lot with regard to this. But, you know, Dr. Taff, when we left off and we were talking about so many things, and then we go to break and we're talking about the health effects of, you know, strong EMFs, and the fact that the people don't understand the gravity of the situation. And because it's not up there in your face, we don't think this is really dangerous, but it is if you are messing around with it.
It's a very subjective matter. Everyone is not hypersensitive to these energies. Some, like for example, what we discovered, the most common link we found, or we call it somatic link, is between these unique electromagnetic or geomagnetic environments and people that are hypersensitive to them. And working on the Cielo Drive case from 2005 to 2006, I went to that house 16 times, and I got sick every time I went there. Other people who went there, far younger than me, who had no prior knowledge of what was going on there, many of them got sick. And I think it was almost two-thirds of the people going there felt ill, some worse than others, some less than others. But it's a unique geophysical environment. When they were building the homes on that hill, they were trying to drill, and their instruments went nuts because of the magnetic field. They had to drill blind. They found old vacuous magma chambers, which means long before anyone settled here, thousands of years ago, maybe millions of years, there was a potential volcano building up, but it never happened. Imagine, this is just north of Beverly Hills. Can you imagine a volcano in Beverly Hills? But
that would not be good.
But the whole thing is, you go up Beverly Hills, it's nice, you know, whatever, you want to go shopping, spend a lot of money, but then you go up Benedict Drive, and go up Cielo Drive, and suddenly, oh my God, why do I feel sick up here? Why do our machines go crazy? I mean, you know, I took a lot of good instruments there. A geomagnetometer, which is like close to $1,000. It's not a toy. Low frequency spectrum analyzer, air ion counter, the good ones. And we saw one either side of the house is anywhere from 60% to 2,000% stronger than it should be, and it's polarized. Go to the end of the house, it's higher, and it's reverse polarity. You grab the rail by the stairwell, your arm goes numb, and you feel like you're going to pass out. The first time I was there in 2005, I did pass out. I woke up on the floor. My friend said I turned beet red. I just fell over. I didn't know, you know, the last time I was there in July of 2006, the same thing. I felt funny, and I suddenly woke up on the floor looking up. That's it. Learned enough. Thank you very much. Luminous anomaly, disembodied voices, things moving around. But I had to make a guess. There's a link between the owner of the house and the environment, and because of this link is probably part of the reason as to why these things are happening on such a frequent level. But as I told Zach Baggins when he was dealing with the David Ullman case, there was no incentive on earth they could get me to go back to that house because they don't want to go back in the hospital again.
Well, see, this is, I mean, to me, when you look at the different UFO hotspots where you've got the same types of activity present, you know, it's the same thing.
Well,
what are your thoughts?
Explain it this way. Okay, in nature, there are many things that produce heat. Light, photons can produce heat. Chemicals can produce heat. Friction can produce heat. Electromagnetic energy can produce heat. They're all different, but they can all produce the same thing. So we're seeing where different things may produce the same effect in us, but it doesn't mean they're the same. It means they may be employing similar forces in ways we don't understand. In the paranormal, it's only one of several things. It's energies we do know of working in ways we don't understand. It's energies we don't know of working in ways we don't understand. But more likely, it's energies we do know of working with energies we don't know of in a way we can't conceive of. The one thing we know now is that the way some of this phenomena is triggered is through magnetic fields. But the energy itself is not magnetic, which makes no sense. And other academicians have said in this area, I'd say it's all part of the zero-point power field, energy that surrounds us constantly, that's always there. And somehow some of us can link into it and access information and use it while others cannot. You know, again, we could all drive cars. How many of us could drive F1 races? They can't. Or we could play a sport, but you won't become an Olympic decathlon. But again, in nature, there are many things that produce the same effect. It doesn't mean it's the same thing. You know, it's there are people. We notice that people, the phenomena we experience, seems to be closest to these strong electromagnetic fields or geomagnetic fields. And if you put someone who's, for example, seizure-prone or epileptic in them, you're more likely that they'll get ill before phenomena will occur. I've had a theory for some time, wrote up a research proposal, a way to artificially trigger the phenomena at linking these sensitive people to the right environment. Okay, but you might injure or harm them, which is unethical and immoral, so you don't do it. There are people playing around with all kinds of gizmos to do exactly what I'm talking about. They may end up short-circuiting people's brains and inducing grand mal seizures. It's not something to play with. You got to be really careful. We're at the very edge of this.
And I have to ask you, though, I mean, we know that there are people inside the government probably that would want to do this. Certain factions, perhaps, I don't know.
Well,
but
there's something called the Frey effect, where they found a way to use collimated microwave beams that affect the auditory nerve, bypassing the outer ear. They can do so, and you'll hear a voice in your head thinking it's your own voice, talking to you, but it isn't you. How well that can be used, I don't know. ELF or ULF energy can do strange things to make them people sick, make them change their behavior, their moods. There's rumors in the first Gulf War, and even the second one, that the huge surrenders from the Iraqi soldiers was unprecedented in modern history. And the belief was that the first time we may have used some sort of ELF weapon, a ULF weapon, to make them so depressed and unstable, they quit.
Yes.
Other theories that said they found evidence of tactical high-energy directed energy weapons used where people were melted and fused with their machinery. Supposedly, we're not using any directed energy weapons other than they're developing them for use on aircraft, and some naval vessel have them, replacing the phalanx close-in weapons technology. You know, you hear this stuff. There was an incident more than 25 years ago in Riverside, California, where someone came into a hospital. They were really sick, and they started to do some surgery. Maybe I don't remember this correctly, but they cut into the surgery, and their blood had granulized, and everyone got really sick. The CDC showed up, poof, disappeared from the news. Kind of weird. Remember what happened in Brazil in 1996 or 7? Supposed entities were seeing a crash. People got sick when they got near them. They smelled bad. We sent people down, and then the whole story vanished. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
You know, remember in 1980 in Dayton, Texas, the two women and their grandchild or whatever.
Yeah, Cash Landrum.
Yeah, Cash Landrum. And the thing melted the highway. The car got superheated. One of the women died of radiation sickness. And they repaired the highway the very next day. Remember the Chinook helicopters accompanying? And then wasn't that right after the Rendlesham Forest thing, like a day or so later?
I think it was.
And no one bothers to link the two events. I wonder if it's the same. And then, they saw, from Cash Landrum, they saw this vehicle being shepherded by 20 Chinook helicopters. So, there's lots of things that can make the car superheated. Microwaves can do it, neutron flux, gamma rays, all of which are toxic to humans. So what was it? Was it our technology that wasn't working well? We'll never. And wasn't it that their medical data on these women vanished from the hospital they were in? What a coincidence. That's the last I heard about it.
Right. Absolutely. And I know, I live in Utah, and Dugway is 80 miles away, and there are lots of aerospace and defense companies here experimenting with things. So, yeah, you just never know. And that's great, all in the name of security. But it is very interesting that paranormal experiences, that UFO encounters, that all of these things are related. So explain that.
Well, like I said, if I had to make a guess, I'd say if UFOs we're being visited from beings from different stars in our galaxy, they may have developed technology that is equivalent to what we call paranormal. So space and time and consciousness can be altered the way we are not familiar with. The same way if we went back in time somehow to 1,000 years ago, our technology would seem like magic. Because people back then didn't know. You have flying machines that make a lot of noise and light up, and they burn you if you get too close. Look at Fatima, Portugal. What happened with the miracle lady of our son? Remember the 3 children? These people showed up. It rained real heavily. There's an article. There's 2 discussions on my website about that. And Dr. Jacques Vallée thinks that it was a UFO encounter, which I agree with. But people get upset. Oh, no, it's religious. That's the way they thought about it last century, not this century. So is it all the same thing? Very likely. But why? And then the whole, it rained, was raining really heavily, I remember, and then the sun came out, and they saw a bright something spinning, that the world was ending, and everyone got dry, and then people were healed. Took a picture, and you could see this silver disc. A silver disc in the sky in the early 20th century? I don't think so. So what was it? That's the problem. We can be I got a feel. I got a feeling this whatever is being used could affect us in ways we don't yet understand. And like I said, if they have any idea what's happening, their desire is not to share that with the world at large, because and all the supposed getting opening files from the British government or the French government, or everything they've talked about has been known about for years. They're not telling us something we don't already know.
Right.
So, this is old. It's old. It's like reruns. We've seen this. Give us information about who, what, where, and why. We don't want to talk about that. And then the other week, a couple of weeks ago on TV, or months ago, footage from the East Coast, naval footage, and then West Coast. The pilot said this thing accelerated so fast he couldn't believe it. Like no aircraft could fly that way. Right, no aircraft we have can fly that way. Then you have the Lockheed Martin TR-3B. It's a lot of this stuff is on my website, and the more we learn, the stranger it gets. That's the problem. That's the problem. It just all the stuff that's been on TV. I think people are more worried about the president and how he got elected, or why she didn't get elected, or whatever. To me, it's nonsense. I'm writing this new book that links current culture, pop culture, to the paranormal in a way that hasn't been done before, because there is a link, and people are ignoring it. And if we ignore it long enough, we'll pay a dear price, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And I would say if people want to look at the history of ufology, the last, let's say, this century, read Richard Dolan's first two books, UFOs and National Security State, volumes 1 and 2. You will not be able to put it down. It's amazing. It's amazing work he's put out there. And it's, who knows? That's the problem. We just don't know. But, the whole point of it is we can't explain one phenomenon with another. That's foolishness. It's absurd. You look for common points and see if there's overlooking at longitudinal data over decades of time. Do you see a pattern that's emerging? Yes, we do. That's how, linked up the stuff with, people who have temporal lobe epilepsy or seizure prone and these strong electromagnetic or geomagnetic fields that affect us. The same thing over and over and over and over. So how many times did it have to hit? How many coincidences make a fact? How many times does something have to hit in your head and you go, wow, this is interesting? And then people I know who are epileptic, who I've met who are epileptic, they stop taking their meds because it makes them feel bad, and they stop taking it, the seizures return, and the phenomena returns. They start taking the meds, their seizures stop, and the phenomena stops. Gee, does that not suggest the same region of the brain might be responsible for producing both things? Yep. But no one's going to get involved with a study with this because they'd lose their medical license. They'd be out of a job.
But it does seem, though, that they're taking this to the private sector. When we see Dr. Gary Nolan and some of the people that are involved with To the Stars Academy, they seem to be obtaining funding through crowdsourcing. So
yeah. But see, the thing is, the hardest thing to understand is ourselves, because we're looking at ourselves through a distorted lens. There's going to be a major revision of the way we perceive ourselves as human beings, the way we look at our past, look at our future. What if we discovered, this is the paranormal stuff, that we could no more affect the future than we could affect the past? We know we can't change the past. It's obvious. But what if the same thing's true of the future? What if what's ever there is there? And I get into this in my new book. I'll get into this over and over again. And what does it mean? I don't know. Does it mean that we're blind? We're in some large play with being manipulated by mechanisms we don't know? I don't know. But it's like that girl I dated 1970. If I had brought her to live with me in L.A., would she still be alive today? I don't know. I talked about with the JFK thing, predicting that. My parents didn't know what they did. They were terrified of me. If that happened today, and I knew a president would be assassinated, and if I called the FBI and Homeland Security months or years, would they then accuse me of being the perpetrator if it happened? Probably. In mid-70s, I was having a terrible dream about piloting a 747. We're on initial approach to South Africa. Don't tell me how I could know that. It was a TWA, and suddenly the drone of the turbofans quit, and we started falling. And tried to restart the engines, nothing. We hit and exploded. And I thought, whoa, this is kind of weird. It was with my girlfriend, and what happened? What do you mean? She said, well, the 747s came into service a few years ago. They've got a perfect record. I said, I know. Did some checking. Yep. A few weeks later, the first 747 crashed on approach to South Africa, and it was a TWA. Didn't know what day, at what time. I didn't know what flight number. But what if this happened today and I made calls? I'd be arrested. See, the problem is we're part of the problem, and until we can grasp the fact that we don't stop with the tip of our nose, the tip of our toes,
right? We
extend that consciousness extends through space and time in ways we cannot not yet comprehend. And it's it's a hard thing for people to grasp that there's no difference in the future and the past. They go like, what? You know, life is never boring.
No, it isn't. And we've got, of course, I want to have you back because we've got so much more to talk about. And just really briefly, I mean, you had mentioned the fact that there was a way that you could induce this type of phenomena. And I believe that ghost hunters, different people in ufology, I mean, we are going out there and we're trying to do that. It's dangerous.
Well, there are people wearing these God helmet things to affect our brains with magnetic fields or put strong, and it's like blind science. We're not that sure yet of how these energies affect us remotely, but in the small percentage of the population that's hypersensitive to them, many of whom are seizure-prone or epileptic, you're courting disaster. And, you know, you could electrocute people. And what good is that going to do for the scientific community, let alone for them? So, you know, you better know what you're doing, and you're going to fry someone's brain. It's that simple. Years ago, we played with the early technology on it, and you could sit around and not get results for years, and suddenly you hit the right set of variables or parameters in the right circumstances, and wham, things start happening. You know, it's hard. I mean, I've learned that, again, for every question we answer, there's hundreds or thousands of more we don't begin to understand. And that's
absolutely. And I knew this was going to be a great show. I am so happy that you finally came on and you've got so much to share with us. And I have to ask you, just to be, you know, a little selfish here, but with all the Tom DeLonge and the Bigelow thing, did you ever have any interaction with Robert Bigelow?
No, I knew other people that have, and it wasn't good. You kind of, for what I learned, you kind of played with them. Had come out and present stuff, and come in. Oh no, I'm busy. Come back. I'm busy. Come back another time. So it's like a game, and when I see that happening, I'm worried that instead of these people willing to come forward and present funding, it's just playing a game of jerking people around. It's like a woman who doesn't want to date a guy who keeps asking her out. Okay, I'll think about it. Instead of saying, no, I don't want to date you, give me a couple of weeks, and you keep asking her for a date or whatever. No, I don't know. I never met Bigelow. I'd like to meet him. He just feels like a colorful individual, but in some ways he reminds me of Howard Hughes, which is upsetting.
That's interesting. I mean, there's so many things that we don't know, but so many games that are at hand, which obviously from what you know is that's nothing different from what we've seen over the past few decades. But Barry, thank you. Dr. Taft, thank you. This has been an incredible show, and I'm going to have you back.
Sure. Let me know. I'm always around.
Oh, I love it. Okay, and I might have to just talk to you and pick your brain on the, not on the air, but I want to tell all of you, please go to barrytaft.net, read these wonderful articles, and get the book that I have had on my shelf, and I refer to A Lot, which is Aliens Above, Ghosts Below. Thank you so much for listening, and stick around for Willie Miranda, who has been in chat. He's got a great show. Tina Marie, Solaris Blue Raven. Next week, I will have two of my favorites, Jen Aldrich and Barry Greenwood, on the show to talk about NICAP and the early days of UFOs and the government and all of these lovely things. So you can find me on UFOclassified.com or on Facebook at UFO Classified. Have a wonderful evening. Be safe, and we will catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network.